I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. Look, we've been calling it here on the network. I said that I thought that George Santos was going to be criminally indicted by either the Department of Justice or local and state prosecutors within the next 2 months. I thought it could even be more imminent than that. And specifically, while the lies that George Santos has told are utterly despicable when you go through them, some of the most heinous lies that should be disqualifying anywhere in American society, except apparently it isn't in the modern day Republican Party. But where the conduct was clearly criminal, to me, was always the money, the campaign finance violations. How was it that George Santos, who reported $55,000 of income in 2020 and who was evicted from prior apartments for being unable to pay monthly rent of approximately $2,000 a month in rent, how all of a sudden in 2022, as he was now running to ultimately prevail based on all of the lies that he told, how was it possible that he was now making over $1 million a year, or about $750,000 in salary, between $1 and $5 million in dividends? And how is he able to loan his campaign $700,000? None of that made sense. And when you focus on the fact that there were all of these lies being told, it kind of gets you fundamentally to the conclusion that there's something untoward in those loans and how those loans are being represented. So the Justice Department is now moving closer to its indictment. They have asked the Federal Elections Commission, the FEC, which is conducting a parallel civil investigation for monetary sanctions, for monetary penalties, is what the FEC does in connection with their investigations. They could also do injunctive relief, but generally that's civil penalties. The Justice Department basically has asked the FEC to not take action yet against George Santos because the Justice Department is working on its own investigation. The Justice Department did not say that its charging decisions are imminent, the same way that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis told Judge McBurney not to release the public report of the grand jury, the special grand jury impaneled in Georgia to investigate 2020 election interference crimes. So the Justice Department didn't say that, but every indication of the Justice Department now telling the FEC not to initiate action against George Santos tells us that the Justice Department is looking like it is moving closer. I would even say charging decisions are imminent, and a charging of George Santos is imminent for his financial fraud. Specifically, this request comes out of the renowned public integrity section of the Department of Justice. And in connection with their request, the Department of Justice also requested of the Federal Elections Commission to also turn over to them some of the relevant documents that the FEC has, including a lot of these financial disclosure forms and some of the backup data that George Santos would have been required to provide to the FEC. And look, we've learned a lot more about these financial crimes this week. And specifically, we learned, for example, that someone by the name as Thomas Dotwire, who had been listed as the treasurer in connection with some of these filings by committees relating to George Santos, was actually not the treasurer. In other words, George Santos, although Santos lies and claims he doesn't know how this could possibly be, but in these Santos-related filings, Thomas Dotwire is listed as a treasurer, and Dotwire says, I'm not the treasurer. I mean, Santos asked me to be, but I've never agreed to actually be the treasurer. So, in other words, somebody forged Dotwire's name on the Santos-related filings. Who would be the person to forge that? Maybe the person who forges and lies about everything. It would go right back to George Santos. One of the other developments this week, of course, is an influx of amended filings were made by George Santos. And in these amended filings, Most of the $700,000 in loans that Santos claims came from his personal funds that he lent to his campaign. The box where you would check personal funds in the amended filings, the only thing really different about these amended filings was that box was unchecked. In other words, removing the designation that there were personal funds that were transferred by George Santos to his campaign as part of a loan. So what does that mean? Well, it means Santos didn't loan himself the money and lied about it. So who loaned Santos the money? Because there are obviously limits and caps regarding individual contributions that could be made. So obviously what seems to have been taking place is that Santos was creating an entity that was taking in all of this money from interested outside parties, interested in destroying our democracy, outside parties that were funneling this money to the Devolder organization or to Santos so that Santos could loan the money to himself and that the identity of these illegal campaign contributions would not be revealed. Look, here's the mystery solved, folks. I don't think it's a tough one, although we can't confirm this yet. Santos is not making millions of dollars. He's a freaking liar. Everything this idiot liar, traitor, MAGA Republican says, everything out of his mouth is an absolute lie. I think I saw, somewhere someone made a comment. It's almost like he is this artificial intelligence trying to become a human being who just spews lies as part of the programming. I've never seen anything quite like this before, but then again, that's not necessarily true. This is who the MAGA Republican Party is. This is just another strand of Donald Trump and Kevin McCarthy and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and all of these. I could go on. Paul Gosar, Gomer, all these people. I could go keep giving Jim Jordan, all these lying traitors. They cover up sex abuse. I mean, this is who the MAGA Republican Party is. Okay. But I digress. So George Santos didn't have the money. It's obvious he never had this money, that someone loaned him this money. He lent the money then to his campaign with the idea of returning it to whoever was involved in this scheme. And, was it possibly this Ponzi scheme that Santos was involved in prior to running in 2022, where this company was written up by the SEC for engaging in a $10 million plus Ponzi scheme? Look, the bottom line is that the Department of Justice is honing in on the criminal conduct. By the way, Democrats are introducing legislation to make the types of lies that Santos is making about himself criminal. And obviously MAGA Republicans are going to kill that bill. They don't want that in because Kevin McCarthy has said, this is not making this up, 100% truthful. Kevin McCarthy said, we don't care if you've lied in the past about your career. All we care about in the Republican Party is what you do in the future. Well, that's utterly absurd, number one. But number two, the past informs the future. And so if you've lied about campaign finance violations, that doesn't go away. And so, look, the Nassau County Republicans, that's where Santos is from. By the way, that's where I grew up. Santos is the Congress member from the district where I grew up. Used to be the 2nd Congressional District. Now it's the 3rd Congressional District. But the Nassau County Republicans from that area after the election, they should have done it before. They knew before. They didn't stand up before. But after, they said, look, this guy's got to resign. And they didn't do that because they were so strong and that they made the right decision. No. Because they supported his conduct up until this point where they realized he's going to get indicted. He's going to get indicted soon. It's only going to get worse. Every day it's drip, 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 drip. What's the next drip? And this just shows you what a horrific leader Kevin McCarthy is. Because Santos, in any organization, any credible organization in the United States of America, and in the world, but in the United States of America, if you had a Santos lie about that, you'd fire the person immediately. Immediately. Could you imagine in the small business that you work at, or the nonprofit that you work at, or the corporation that you work at, or wherever you work at, there was someone who did what Santos did and lied? They'd be fired in a day. They'd be fired in 5 minutes. But in the Republican Party, they get rewards. They get awarded committee assignments. Heck, Kevin McCarthy named George Santos, who's being criminally investigated by the Department of Justice, and it's so obvious that he committed campaign finance violations, criminal campaign finance violations, and McCarthy put Santos in charge of a committee, the Small Business Committee, that oversees small business fraud, PPP loan fraud. You can't make this stuff up. George Santos was appointed to not one but two committees by the Republicans, by Kevin McCarthy. The Small Business Committee to oversee fraud committed by small businesses. Santos is the one who investigates that? Are you kidding me? And he was appointed to the Space, Science, and Technology. And look, there's a lot to make fun of about the horrific nature of Santos. Yes, you can have a good laugh sometimes, but this is criminal, folks. This is absolutely criminal. And the fact that you have Santos making life and death decisions over our lives, over your family, and the MAGA Republicans laugh about that as they laugh about their Mr. Potato Head anger and their stoves and their green M&Ms and all of this stuff. It is absurd, folks. But the good news is Department of Justice is telling the FEC, look it. Don't pursue your action. We've got this covered. That means criminal indictments will be coming soon against George Santos. I've been Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button, folks. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your support. And check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. You will love the exclusive content there. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.